You are listening to Practical and Woo by Mindset and Manifest. I'm your host, Eden, and I'm so excited to offer you this bonus series called the CBRDBR series. This side series is a forum for us to meet interesting guests with unique perspectives and gifts discovered from lived experiences that are both practical and woo. Let's dive in. On this episode of the CBRDBR series, I'd like to introduce you to W.T. Hamilton. W.T. Hamilton is a mindset coach, entrepreneur, and award-winning author who helps his clients bring their million-dollar ideas to fruition by helping them adopt a growth mindset. He accomplishes this by offering his clients tools he's gained through his own lived experience that have enabled him to achieve what he calls his personal impossibles. From authoring his own book series to speaking on stage, WT has been able to turn his own dreams into reality. Hello, I would like to welcome you, WT, to this episode of Practical and Woo by Mindset and Manifest. This is the first of the CBRDBR series that we are doing, and I am so thrilled and so excited to be having this open conversation with you about your journey, spirituality, and all zesty, juicy topics that come up from here. So I know you are a kick-ass mindset coach, and I would love for you to talk more about that, as well as your connection and journey with metaphysics, spirituality, manifestation, sort of how you came to be where you are now in this present moment that we are now meeting.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I've been looking forward to jumping on here with you.
Me too. So why don't we start with, I recall in our pre-meeting that you mentioned some incredible buzzwords like impossible possibles and growth mindset and things like that. And you also had such a wonderful take and account about how you got to where you are and the recognition that spirituality really is for everyone, even through skeptical mindsets or skeptical perspectives. So I am so fascinated on your take on that, and I would love to hear more.
Yeah, so really, I got into this stuff not intentionally. I guess I was kind of guided to it. So I was working in a job that I really loved. I was a production manager, had a great team, and the place was really busy. And then the market crashed in 2009. It actually crashed in 2008, but by beginning of 2009, the company came to a halt, and they called in a loan. And even though we were busy, we didn't have the money to cover all the inventory that we had. So basically, that shut us down. And at that moment, I realized that I'm not in control of my financial future, and I'm not in control of my career. And I said to myself, well, if I'm not in control, who is? Right? And do the people that are in control really care about me? Because I'm selling, my time for money. And so at the end of the day, as long as I've done my job, we don't really owe each other anything. So I started to realize, okay, I got to start taking control of my financial future and of my career. So how do I do that? And at that time, when I'm running into that crisis, at the same time, my mom, she was getting into law of attraction. And so she came across the book and the movie, The Secret. So she gave it to me and my two brothers, but she thought, oh, Wayne WT's not going to like this because he's skeptical, which is true. But when I checked it out and I read it, it really resonated with me because all the things that I had done up until that point, I always just thought I was kind of lucky and things just kind of worked out for me. But started to realize, no, there's a thing. It's a way of focusing on what you want and then taking action toward the thing that you want to do. And the more that you focus on what you want and the more that you take action, the better the outcome is for the thing that you want to have happen. So once I started to realize that it's actually a tool that you can use, a process of thinking, because I didn't really resonate with the spiritual part of it. The woo-woo part was like, whoa, that's way too out there for me, and I can't get my head around all this type of thing at that time. But I knew I was using it even though I wasn't spiritual. So I knew it was a there was more to it than just, the presentation of the spiritual part. My mom was very much into the spiritual. So I started writing, my experiences and what was working and what wasn't working, kind of like a journal, but I did it kind of in chapter forms I was doing it so my kids could read it later and make it easier for them so they didn't have to navigate the way that I did. But also, I had it, in the back of my mind that maybe it could become a book someday. And then one day my mom, she was doing law of attraction blogs, and she said, "Oh, I'm thinking about writing a book." And I said, "Well, I got some chapters. Maybe you can take a look at them and see if any of that stuff will work for your book idea." And it ended up being half the book. So basically the book was her spiritual side of how to use the law of attraction, and then my practical, logical side of how to use law of attraction. So that's really how I accidentally got into this.
That is so wonderful. And I love, right, that accidental discovery of something that truly does impact your world in a way that you can never go back from. And
Yeah.
it sort of gives you the ability to be in the driver's seat of your life and recognize that things don't just happen to you, but there is some semblance of focused, intentional control that you can implement into
Yeah.
the experience. And so I love that so much. As you know, my podcast is Practical and Woo because the spirituality is incredibly inaccessible to a lot of people who are, focused, logical thinkers. And it can be hard to wrap your mind or to even just give your mind something to play with as you get deep. My curiosity would be, what has shifted for you since, the beginning of your journey, being skeptical, kind of finding these practical nuggets of wisdom, combining them with your mom's take? Have you been able to expand into the spiritual side? Has that become important to you? What has
Yeah.
changed?
So the journey is, um, I seen like people that were like super spiritual, and they were kind of, in a almost like a la land. And I didn't want to be that way because I wanted to be able to help people use it without, having to go extremely one way or the other. So I was really fighting it, and I was kind of being drawn to it, or dragged toward spirituality. So one day I'm uh, I'm at home and I'm on my computer and I'm doing an invoice, and the end of the invoice number was 911. I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird. And then I looked around, and like within 10-15 minutes of that time, I'm looking at the clock and it's 9:11 in the morning. And so I thought, oh, that's kind of weird way. I never really noticed numbers before. So then I had to go to this event in the afternoon. I had to drive to Toronto to go to this meetup event. And I'm driving, and the truck in front of me, the numbers on the back of the truck, the last couple of numbers was 911. So then I freaked out, like, oh, something bad's gonna happen. So I went to the truck stop. So in Canada, when you're driving down the 401, there's these on routes. So I pulled into this on route, and I got on my phone right away, and I'm like, what is the numbers 911? And it pulled up angel numbers, and they explained the angel numbers. And it was all good stuff. And I started to realize, oh, wait a minute. So I'm starting to see numbers, and they're like have the messages and stuff in them. And then I went to this event, and one of the speakers that was there, I was talking to her after, and she talks to dead people. So basically, she sees me and she's like, "You're being pulled towards something. I'm getting this real sense that you're being pulled towards something." And she starts talking to me about angels and stuff. And I really didn't believe in that stuff at that time, but it was just getting bombarded with this like, you're going to listen to me and you're going to start believing in this, whether you want to or not, because we got messages for you, and we got things that you need to do, and you have to be open to some of this stuff. So it was kind of a rude awakening, but in a good way. And now I see like 44s and 77s, a lot of times. And I take intuition from that, and I started to tap into my own intuition of when something comes along. Now, if it's a solution, I realize that I've called on that solution. Maybe it might have been 2 months ago, maybe it might have been last week, but at some point I was looking for this solution and now the solution is here and I need to take action and see what I can do with that. And that's led me to really be able to achieve like a lot of my personal impossibles by doing that type of thing.
I have so much I want to say. Like my mind is going ping, ping, ping. First, why don't we explore from your perspective your framed term, possible impossible? I know that is something that came from you, at least in my world. And so I would love to give a context for our listeners, what that means for you and how they can utilize it. And then I want to jump back and talk all about the angel numbers and the signs.
Okay. So personal impossibles are really things that other people are doing and it seems like it's easy for them to do, but for you, from where you are and the skills and the talents you have, you're looking at it that I could never do that. I could never speak on stage even though I see all kinds of people speaking on stage, or I could never write a book even though I see all kinds of people writing a book. So to explore your personal impossibles, like when I started writing back in grade school, I was probably in like grade 4, it's probably 9 or 10. We were at a meet the teacher night with my parents, and my teacher told my parents that I'll never be not very successful because I struggle at spelling. And so being a young kid, that could have crushed me, but it didn't really affect me. Maybe I just didn't have enough respect for the teacher. I'm not sure, but it didn't really affect me. But now, I write books. I'm still not that good at spelling. You don't tell anybody, but I'm able to take that flaw and own it. So I'm not afraid of making spelling mistakes. So because I'm not afraid of it, it doesn't hold me back. And so I'm able to achieve my personal impossible, which is, okay, what do I need to do now to be able to get good at writing? And part of that process was starting to write and then get some constructive criticism, and then look at, okay, now what do I need to do to tweak it? Is it skills? Is it attitude? Is it habits? What is it I need to do? And start to build a process to be able to do that. So that's what personal impossible is all about. It's not just anything you want to do that's completely impossible, but it's like, what are other people doing that you could do, but you're just not doing because you have a fear or a block? And then how do you get over that fear and block to be able to do those things?
That's wonderful. My curiosity now, my wonderment is leading me to ask you whether you were intuitively guided in each phase and each step of those, or of overcoming the personal impossible. So let's say you started from, I'm a terrible speller and I want to write a book, so therefore I can't write a book. And then you kind of opened up or unweaved some of those skills and took action towards developing yourself to be able to become a best-selling author.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that it was all inspired action or intuitively guided, or what has that process looked like for you?
So part of it is confidence. So you got to build up a bit of confidence in like believing you can do something, even though nobody's really saying you can or giving you permission. So you give yourself permission. But then it's also the intuition comes from, okay, what should I do next? So sometimes I'll sit down and I'll just say to myself, what should I do next? And I'll just sit with that for a little bit. Sometimes it'll come to me in like an idea and I'll write it down in my journal, or it'll come to me like a video or a conversation with somebody. But I pick up on these little things that I wouldn't pick up on before when I wasn't really following intuition. And now that I know I'm kind of being guided, so I use that as an advantage, an unfair advantage that maybe other people, they get these signs but they don't see them, but I'm seeing them and I'm like, okay, this is telling me to do this now. Like when I decided I wanted to start promoting what I was doing, I decided to do podcast interviews, and then it just kind of lined up. Everything just kind of lined up because I opened up to, okay, now I'm ready to do podcast interviews. And then I started getting prompts on, okay, check this website out or check this podcast show. And so I use intuition even when I'm listening to different, like when I listen to your show, I really like the way that it sounded, like how you presented, how you talked. And so I said, I got to reach out to that person. I didn't know what you looked like or who you were, but just listening to your show, I said, I want to be on that show. I want to work with this person. If I wasn't doing intuition, I probably wouldn't have reached out.
See, that's so interesting. I'm hearing you say, right? I love the way that you frame. Also, thank you for the compliment. For I want to acknowledge and accept that.
Yeah.
But I'm hearing you when you're framing things, you really bring in that logical, practical side of things, and also I can feel the mysticism in the way that you approach your life as well. So I would love to dive more into co-collaborating, right, with like the fabric of your reality. That's kind of what it feels like for me sometimes, where
Mhm.
you're getting like inundated with repeating numbers, or you're seeing very specific animal symbolism come into your life, or someone says something that is answering a question that you had thought of that morning,
Mhm.
right? It's this kind of like immersion into the world around you from a space of I'm always being guided. That's what I heard you say.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm wondering, what advice would you give to our listeners about moving with the fabric of the universe, essentially, of their reality, in order to have the best possible chance of manifesting or creating a life that they love?
So I really think that it's part of it is like divine timing, but I call it divine preparation. So when you decide you want to do something, there's certain things that you have to do first to be able to be ready to even start that manifestation. It might be that you haven't met someone that you need to meet first that's going to open up a door, or it might be an information that you need. Maybe there's a belief that you have that you need to shed. And the way to shed a belief is to learn more about what's blocking you, and then learn what you can do with that so that that no longer blocks you. And once you get into that rhythm of understanding, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to write this book. Now, what are the steps I have to take? Because you don't just decide to write a book, do some visualization, do some meditation, and then all of a sudden you're writing a book. I mean, it just doesn't work as smoothly as that. There's going to be some struggles, and the struggles are to be able to make you better at what you're doing, to build up your talents, build up your skills and your experiences. Because when you have these experiences, those are the things that you get to help people with. You get to talk about, this is the things that I did. This is what I ran into. This is how I overcame it. So I think a lot of the intuition is really helping you to take that journey, because it's a journey, and it's a roller coaster, and there's challenges, but you have to accept that it's not supposed to be easy. If it was easy, then all you would have to do is sit and meditate, and you could have everything, but you wouldn't appreciate it. You wouldn't have any gratitude for it because you didn't put any work into doing it. So the things that you really appreciate are the things that you work at. And when you run into those struggles, that's where intuition is great, because you can sit back, you can just stop everything, and just talk to yourself. Go within and say, what do I need to do now? Or who do I need to talk to now? Or what's going to help me now? And just saying that to yourself and sitting with it for a moment or two, you'll find that that answer is going to pop up. It might pop up at a weird time, but it's going to pop up. And then, so I have like on my phone, sometimes the answer will come, and I'll just write it on my phone real quick on my notes. Because if I don't, sometimes I'll forget
Yes, that's such a good
it.
idea. Yeah, sometimes these things are like fleeting. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I love your conceptualization, and I love the importance of emphasizing action. And I would also love to challenge what our present society fundamentally considers action. So I think personally, there's an overindulgence in taking action out of alignment to the goal that you're creating. So I heard
Yeah.
you say there is a process of preparation that needs to happen for you to, essentially, to become the person that you're asking to be, in
Yeah.
order to effectively appreciate and even to expand beyond the desire that you are kind of bringing into fruition or bringing into reality. So there's this like gestation period of a seed growing into a full-fledged plant. Our society really does emphasize like, just do it, like take action, come on, let's go. And I know for me at certain stages of my life, in certain versions of my journey, action really wasn't accessible at that time.
Okay.
And so the important thing, I think, is to find those things that you feel inspired to do, that inspired action piece. I'm curious how you resonate with this. And if you could distill down what kinds of actions, because I find that when people recognize the importance of action, there's often a dismissal of the manifestation process because they're like, oh, I have to work hard anyway. And it's not working outside of what you're feeling really like lit up to do.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's strenuous, right? Sometimes you're pushed out of your comfort zone, but there is always an inherent, when it's in alignment and inspired, clarity or like sense of like, this is the right step for me.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, because I had gone through that journey. So before COVID, like 2019, 2018, even beginning of 2020, I was like, I got to be at all these events. I got to be always doing something. And so I was doing what I call tasks, and they weren't really action items. They weren't inspired action. It was more of fear of missing out and feeling like I got to be seen at all these different places to kind of force something to manifest, to force the next thing that I want. So when COVID happened and everything slowed down, I started to realize that the most work that you do is inside your head. So you really got to focus on what you want and then look at what is the best case scenario. You know, you understand the worst case scenario, but only focus on the best case scenario. And then how do I manifest that? How do I make that work? And so once you look at it that way and you accept that there is going to be some work, some challenges, but the challenges are always going to help you break through the next level of whatever you're trying to do. And the way to do that is when you get inspired, and it's usually, for me anyways, is I get prompted. So it's not just that I decide I'm going to do this. No, it's something pops up, and all of a sudden this idea in my head is, oh, I should do this thing. I should take this action. I seen this video, I read this article, or whatever it is. Once I get that feeling that that was something I was supposed to read or I was supposed to see, then I start to work on that manifestation. But then I let that manifestation unfold and I try to enjoy the unfolding of it. And that, so I'm not in a big rush to get to the full manifestation because I know it's in stages, but I acknowledge it. Oh, this is working. And I celebrate the little wins. By celebrating the little wins, it keeps me excited until the next prompt comes to me, the next inspired action. So I don't try to force things anymore, which I used to, but now I'm at the point where I'm just going to go with the flow. And if it feels right, I'll try it out. So not everything works out, but I always learn something and I'm better at it for next time. Or I find out that, okay, I don't like doing that part. Next time I'm going to farm that out. I'm going to pay somebody to do that part. And I'm just going to focus on this part of my manifestation.
That's awesome. What what is an example from your recent experience of truly enjoying the manifestation process unfolding?
So like when so I put out videos on YouTube, and I'll put out a video and drive some traffic to it, and I'll get responses. People will comment and just little things like that. It just feels good. It's like a validation for what you're doing, and it might not be a big thing in the big picture, but in the small picture, it's the next step, and that it fuels you to do more of those type of things. And like what I try to do is really share a lot of insight in the videos. So I'm trying to put out free information that helps people to overcome their struggles, especially with entrepreneur stuff. But doing that, it feels good. So it's that feeling of that I'm doing something that's not just for me, but it's for other people. I'm in service of other people, and that's kind of how I measure my unfolding of my manifestation. Like how many people am I helping? How much impact am I making?
Okay, cool. I like that perspective. So you take the approach that you are just moving on your journey in order to support others as sincerely as possible.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to someone who is trying to create a life that feels fulfilling?
Really, so focus on what it is you want to experience and how you want to feel. Because I think a lot of people focus on what they want their success to look like and what the end result will be. But really, if you start focusing on what you want to experience and who you want to experience it with and how you want to feel, like if you want to feel fulfilled, then it helps you to guide you to things that are going to make you feel fulfilled. Because money doesn't make you feel fulfilled. Money's great, but it's not everything. It's just a small part of whatever it is, right? So when you take money out of the equation of this is my goal is to make this much money, but instead have a different goal, and the money will come if you're in service and you're doing things that are going to benefit more than just yourself. But it's really, I really feel like the feeling of whatever feeling you want, if you want the feeling of joy, feeling of abundance, whatever that feeling is, that's what you should be focused on. And that will, you'll transmit that. It'll just, and you'll attract what it is you need to be able to get to that feeling.
So the importance of focusing on the feeling behind the goal.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for me, the goal is the feeling.
The goal is the feeling. So when
Yeah.
you are, thinking of things to create in your life, are you focused more on how you want to feel in your life?
Yeah. So I mean, I really want to be fulfilled with what I'm doing. I want to feel like, it was a fun experience. It's powerful and fulfilling, because just happiness itself, like happiness, I always tell people it's like a drug. Like you get spikes of happiness and then you got to come down. But fulfillment, it fills you up. It stays with you for a long while. So it's more sustainable once you get into that rhythm of building fulfillment. And happiness is in there, joy is in there, but the feeling of just feeling like you're really making a difference and you're enjoying what you're doing is more powerful than just having some happy moments.
Mm-hmm. I
Mm-hmm.
agree. I feel like it's all part of the colorful spectrum of this life that we live.
Yeah.
And the more that you can derive pleasure from the simplest of moments to really allow yourself to activate a feeling sense from even just taking a sip of tea in the morning, right?
Yeah.
All of those like minute experiences like really help to compound with one another to grow into the like regular occurrence of them in your life, and then it continues to amplify.
Yeah.
I'm
So
hearing
how did you find like that journey when you went on that journey? What was it like for you?
what journey specifically,
The
my
journey
spiritual
of
journey?
so when you how do you look at your goals? I guess it would be.
That's such a good question. So for me, my goals are really also rooted in the experiences of things.
Okay.
So what kind of experience do I want to have in this life? And everything in the world and in the universe is relational. Without people to interact with, without the co-collaboration of the universe, without your relationship to yourself, right? Everything is a relationship. And so really being able to respond in a way that feels expansive and lit up as much as possible in any given moment is sort of the desire that I have for the experiences of my life. And so with respect to the broader goals, it's sort of become like wouldn't it be cool if, and like, wouldn't it be cool then if this happened or if this and this, and then you can kind of grow even beyond the version of you you're trying to be and have them kind of expand into what could be possible for that version of yourself as well. And it's sort of this ripple effect. And I agree with what you're saying, where the inner verse, I believe that's a term that you use as well.
Yeah.
The inner self the ability to experience what you're wanting to have now by invoking those feelings in your body now. So I'm trying to have this so I can be happy. Well, what does happiness feel like? How
Mhm.
can I experience happiness in this moment? And you begin to create a ripple effect of almost reprogramming yourself to be more in line with that vibrational reality of what happiness feels like or what joy feels like.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. Because I know like with the law of attraction, they're always talking about the being in that vortex and being on that vibration, but they don't really explain how to actually align with that vibration. Like, what is it you're trying to actually do? You know, you be happy, but what is that? What does that feel like? So that's why I say if you build an experience, you know what that experience feels like. So that experience in your mind, and you start to live that experience in your mind, you'll start to feel the feelings of already doing it, and that'll get you on that vibration. Otherwise, yeah, get in the vortex. How do you get in the vortex?
Yes, there's a lot of how. I feel like
Mm,
often people who are new into reality creation, I like to term it that way because it kind of encapsulates all of the different philosophies that are on the market into this. You create your reality. So
mhm.
there's different kind of lenses of how that might work, and you have to find your unique method in the sense that everything in this universe is energy, and you are in the matrix of fine tuning your energy in order to experience the energy in which you're already experiencing.
Yeah, yeah,
I feel like you're going to have to listen to that a couple of times to digest it and integrate it. But it's really about what you're saying, like becoming, being, considering the person that you are asking to be now, and starting to try on those like small habits that that person might do or have, the emotions that person might feel, but it's you. So you're
mhm,
not outside of yourself trying to be someone else. It's really this homecoming of coming back to you.
yeah,
Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah. It does.
This
Yeah.
is fun. I like this.
Mhm.
Why don't you talk about the innerverse? Because you have some buzzwords that are new to me, at least, in the space, and I just love the frame in which you bring some of this concept into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the universe is like, so what really I think is the most exciting in the going into your universe. So you're going inside. So you basically you live in your 3D reality, and then you live in another reality at the same time that you can visit anytime you want. And in the inner universe, what I found is that you can go anywhere you want in the world by just by closing your eyes and focusing on something, or you can have a conversation with somebody that maybe has passed away that you want to talk to and get some insight. And you can really, once you get into that, you can really start to tap into different things and find answers through just thinking and asking yourself questions. And what you find is that you'll answer yourself questions without speaking. So you have this voice inside your head. It's your voice, and sometimes it'll tell me to write things down. It won't tell me to write things down. Like, it doesn't talk to me like that, but I'll just have these ideas, and I'll start to write down the idea and start to write down the kind of like the blueprint of what I need to do next. And after I'm done writing it, I'll look at it like a day later and be like, wow, this is really good. Like, who wrote this?
Mm,
Because it doesn't feel like it's me writing it. It doesn't feel like it was my words, but it's exactly what I needed to know what to do next. So the universe is very powerful if you can slow down and really start to think about. It's really asking questions and asking for insight or asking for direction. So those three things, if you get into the habit of asking yourself that, doing that at night when you're just before you go to bed, when everything's quiet, or if you have a time where you can have some quiet time to yourself, to be able to close your eyes and then just really focus on something. whatever it is, whatever is plaguing you, you focus on it and you'll find you'll get the answer, because you'll start to attract the answer to you, and you'll start to attract yourself to the answer. So it's like this
Mm.
convergence. It's really, really, really cool.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel that too. And I'm someone who is quite visual in my mind, especially over time as I have been developing my connection to this kind of work.
Mm-hmm.
My wonderment, my curiosity is, how would you describe the feeling of connecting into your inner verse for someone who is afraid of meditation or afraid of quieting their mind? What is the like, for me, I guess it's sort of like you're going down in an elevator in your body where like it just is kind of like a whoosh, and everything kind of slows down, and it feels like you're moving down deep into your body. And it's also that combination of trust that whatever comes up is meant to come up, and you're not forcing anything to happen. But I know, especially if you're in the early days of spirituality, there's this sense of a spiritual awakening looks like fireworks and like angels tooting like trumpets in this big serenade. And I often have people wondering, like, how do you know that you're channeling, or how do you know that you're connecting spiritually to something greater than yourself when it just feels like you? And it just feels like you is the answer.
Exactly. So I always struggled with meditation. That was something that, like, it took me a long time to do any kind of meditation. So what I really focused on was just visualization, because that was a lot easier for me. So I would just really close my eyes and just kind of think about, basically rehearse whatever I wanted to do. So if I had to speak on stage the next day or the upcoming days, I'd rehearse the speech and rehearse what it was like to be there, what it was like to interact with the people. And so that's really what I did more than like just meditation. Like for meditation, really is to quiet your mind and to have nothing on your mind, and then I guess things will just come to you. So when I started journaling, so after I started doing that stuff and I started journaling, I was talking to somebody, probably, well, during one of the podcasts I was doing during the COVID time, and they were like, "Oh, that's channeling." I'm like, what do you mean it's channeling? It's like, I'm just, I'm getting these ideas and right, no, they're coming from somewhere else. Like, what do you mean they're coming from somewhere else? They're my mind. I'm telling myself what to write. I'm hearing my voice or my thoughts, and I'm writing down. Oh no, that's channeling. So for me, it's like I didn't have this big experience that all of a sudden I'm channeling stuff. It just felt like a natural thing of, okay, I've been focusing on this and now I'm starting to get the answers. So I don't know, like in my experience, it wasn't any big profound, like, I don't feel like I'm like this super spiritual person or this super channeler person. I know that when I have something I want to figure out, I quiet my mind, I ask myself questions, and I get answers. So however that works, or whatever the label is on that, I'm good with it, but I just know that it works.
I love that. I just know it works. Yes, oftentimes the labels make it more inaccessible to people. And
Mm-hmm.
just trying it out for yourself. Often the worst thing that can happen is that, you get a little bit more clarity on something, or, you
Yeah.
feel a little bit happier on one day, right? There's really no downside to connecting with yourself and to feeling into expansive emotions and like
Yeah.
exploring.
But I do feel, so when I do that, I do feel something kind of a different energy. It's kind of like a weird energy. Sometimes I feel a little bit lightheaded. So I do feel like I'm not exactly the same as before I kind of went into that. So there is something weird that goes on.
I agree. Like often for me, my channeling comes in the form of advice, usually for people. If someone asks me a question or asks me for support in some way, I know there's always this stream of advice that I can offer to them. And then if my observer self listens, I'm usually going through something that requires that advice also.
Okay. Yeah.
So then I know that there's this separation of like, okay, part of this is coming from like an expanded all-knowing source, and the other part is me on this journey of life. and if I tune into sometimes my own advice, then that could be supportive. But
Mhm.
blind spots are often a thing on this human journey of ours.
Yeah, and I used to run into, so because I was a production manager for many years, I would run into guys that I had worked with or was managed, and they would tell me like advice that I gave them. Oh, you told me this, and it was really great advice. I don't remember telling them that. And I'm hearing that like, oh, that is really good advice. I should remember that.
That's your channel, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
like that same experience of reading back something you wrote and you're like, wow, I wrote this. And like your ego gets a little inflated, but
yeah.
it's coming from a much purer source than that, a more expansive source than that. And I think that that's really cool unto
Mhm.
itself. Why don't you go ahead and let our listeners know how you support people on their journey with respect to the growth mindset, with respect to your mindset coaching work and that kind of stuff, that fun
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. So I do have a website, mindsetforsuccesstraining.com, and I have giveaways on there, and I have free videos that people can watch. I do have some pre-recorded programs, and then they can do one-on-one coaching as well. So, I do a lot of stuff on YouTube. I try to do as much stuff for free as I can, just to help people, because I find that sometimes you just need that one little thing. You just need that one little nugget to help you, get something clearer, or give you that spark, that idea. So I do a lot of that, and then yeah, if they want to go deeper, there's programs and trainings that they can do.
And what does a coaching session with you typically look like? Like, what are the high level concepts that you would bring into a session to help support someone?
So mainly what I focus on is helping them build up their confidence and then achieve their personal impossible. So I basically would find out what it is that you would love to do, but you don't really know how to do it or where to start, and you're not really sure that you should do it. You're kind of looking for permission, you're kind of looking for some direction, and we'll look at that, and then just start to set up the steps and strategies, and look at the skills. Like, do you have natural talents in that thing, or is it something that you need to build up some talents for? If you have some experience in it, or is it something completely different from whatever you ever done? Like, you jumping completely out of your comfort zone, or are you playing it safe? So depending on what they're doing, I do a customized plan for them, and then we just do some sessions to build up the confidence and really keep them going when you run into hurdles, because that's the hardest part. When you run into hurdles, and if you're just trying to do it just off of like free videos and free advice, when you run into hurdles, it's like, who do you talk to? How do you find the solution that works, and then customize it to what you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's wonderful, and a wonderful work that you're offering to people. There's like a very prominent old adage that's coming to my mind right now. I don't know who or where it's from, but it's essentially, I think it's definitely like an Eastern philosophy concept about how the bamboo is stronger than the oak tree. And when you think
Uh,
about the oak tree, it's this like massive tree with huge trunk, and it is giant, and the bamboo is more slender, and you would then wonder, why is that the case? Why is the bamboo stronger than the oak tree? And it's because of its flexibility. So I'm hearing you say that you help support people learn how to bend with their obstacles and to move with the journey as it comes. And that's really part of the greatest lesson that you can employ in this human experience is you're never going to be able to force your way out of having difficult and expansive experiences that feel strenuous or hard or terrible. However, you can shift yourself in a way that can weather the storm with more
mhm.
certainty and confidence and safety, so that you can use the lessons and the transferable skills that you were asked to learn in those moments
Yeah.
to expand yourself towards the dream or the desire that you're asking to have.
Yeah.
It's so philosophical.
And I guess that's the hurdle, is that people don't want to learn the things they need to learn, because some of it is some crappy stuff, and like you got to learn things that you don't want to, or go through part of a journey that you don't want to. But if you don't go through that part of the journey, you never can get the reward that's on the other side.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And often I find that hindsight is such a profound gift, not to get stuck in the past, but to see the iterations, the patterns, the lessons that you were able to overcome in order to become who you are now.
Yeah.
Often that hindsight gives you the faith, especially see, I don't know, because I awakened to my journey fairly early on in my life. So I'm like, I
Okay.
don't know what another life looks like that's not awake, right? Like
Yeah.
what that hindsight might look like. But if every person I believe is capable of looking back and finding the commonalities of the lessons they were being asked to learn as
Yeah.
you were being invited to grow into that next phase, that next stage in that alignment of what you were asking to experience or who you were asking
Yeah.
to become.
And as you learn this stuff and you start to look back, you start to see the synchronicities that you missed that were actually working to help you get to even where you are now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those like signs and symbols and like, oh my gosh, like in tarot. And I know you and I have discussed that both of us are into tarot a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
cool. I love that. In tarot, there is a card in the major arcana called the Tower.
Yeah.
And it's a dark and gloomy card with this
Yeah.
tower built on uneven foundation with the king and queen falling out of the window and there's lightning. And often recipients of this card are like, oh my gosh, like that's the worst thing ever. But really the tower is that invitation to start fresh and build a solid foundation that you can actually have a sustainable experience
Yeah.
enjoying what you're wanting. So that's
Yeah.
that sense of like, I got fired from that job and it was the worst experience of my life. And oh my gosh, I never want that to happen again. And then the hindsight kind of provides you that understanding of if I stayed in that job, I would be miserable and I wouldn't be authentically myself.
Yeah. And then you have the contrast. So now when you're doing something good, whether it's your own business or a new job, like, oh, this is way better than the last one. You wouldn't know that if you just stayed in that old one.
Yes, the power of contrast. WT, would
Yeah.
you tell us a little bit more about that as well? The importance of
Yeah. So, I mean, that's part of like the unfair advantage, is that for everyone that has an advantage, there's someone that has a disadvantage. And so it's like, okay, you want to have unfair advantage. Like you want to be able to have a better life and a more exciting life. What are those advantages? What is the contrast? So for every plus and minus, it's like, okay, you have to experience some of the bad to be able to appreciate the good. Or else if everything's good, you're never going to appreciate it. And then you won't create more because you will take it for granted instead of having gratitude for it. So by understanding the struggle is there to show you something, but it's also there so that when you get the triumph, you're going to really appreciate it, because you had to work for it, and it took some time, it took some effort, and it's all contrast. It's like if everything works out great, if every relationship you ever have is great, you're never really going to appreciate a good relationship. But if you have some crappy relationships, then when you get a good one, you're going to really hold on to that, because maybe the next one after that is not going to be that good. So
yes,
that's what contrast is so powerful.
so powerful. And what would you tell listeners who get very nervous that, if I'm successful, then what about all of the people who aren't making it, right? There's often this guilt that we have in the face of privilege of
Mm.
someone else is suffering and I'm living pleasurably. What would you tell to those people?
Well, so you have I feel like you have an obligation to become successful if you have those abilities, if you have those opportunities, because there might be somebody that owns a coffee shop that is counting on people like yourself to go to that coffee shop because you're traveling and you need to patronize that place. They're going to make money, and they need that money to be able to pay their bills and employ their people, the hotels that you stay at. Like everything that you do all the things that you're doing because you're successful is actually supporting all type of other businesses and entrepreneurs and places. So you have an obligation, and now the people that are struggling, they might just not be ready for what you know yet. So even if you gave them everything, they might not be ready to take on that struggle. May not be ready to start believing in something bigger than what they believe in right now. So part of that is you make that available to whoever you can, but it's like you can't force someone to believe in going into your inner verse if they think, oh, that's crazy talk.
Mm-hmm.
You're just a weird person. Why would you do that? So you can't fight them and try to tell them, oh no, you're wrong. You don't understand, because they don't understand. They haven't had the experiences and been exposed to the information that you have. So I feel like you should never feel guilty. You shouldn't feel like you're better than somebody. Like, we all put our pants on one leg at a time. We're all equal, no matter who you are, how high you are, or how low you are. We're all equal as human beings. But it's just that if you choose to have different experiences than someone else, that's because you choose to have different experiences. So you choose to be successful and you work toward that success, then you should celebrate that success. Don't be pompous about it, and be able to be open to helping other people get there if they want, but don't be upset at them if they don't want it either.
Mm-hmm. And I'm hearing you say the importance of establishing yourself and growing yourself, if that is on your path to do so, if that is in your desire to have, and not dimming your light because you're worried about the choices that other people are making. And when you light yourself up, you can actually give back to those other people in insurmountable ways with the platform, the voice, the financial success that you have. You can choose to give to other people who are growing into who they're asking or wanting to be as well. And so that's the importance of staying in your own lane, and just also feeling deep appreciation for what you have as well, as opposed to getting stuck in the mind warp of wondering why me, because everybody is equally worthy of having a magnificent life of their dreams. And, we all have the beauty of being at different stages of that. Mm-hmm. But, overcoming your possible impossible. Did I say that right?
Yeah. You're impossible possibles.
Impossible possibles. Yeah. I was like, oh no.
No, sorry, your personal impossibles. That's what it.
Personal impossibles.
Yeah, because it's just you. It's something that's holding you back. That's why I call it personal impossible.
Your personal impossible is an important thing to do for yourself, for your growth, for your expansion, for your journey. And then to have that ripple effect that can support other people on their paths and journeys as well. I'm sorry, I butchered that.
So it's okay. But because I find that we get too much into what other people think. And at the end of the day, it's all about what you're doing. At the end of the day, it's about who you're surrounding yourself with, but you have to live with what you're doing. So if you're letting other people kind of have a say in what you should do or how you should feel, you're not really in control. You're giving your power to those people. And maybe it's a small percent, but you're still giving a percent. So I don't let people live in my headspace. It's just me that lives in my headspace.
It's wise. Your sacred home, your sacred space.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you are feeling called to raise for our conversation today?
Just that I think if you want to do something, give yourself permission to do it, and don't expect it to be easy. But because nothing is as easy as it looks, but nothing is as hard as it looks either. So just go in there with, no expectations, no demands. Just, I want to experience this, and take the feelings that you get from that experience and then expand on them. Even if it didn't work out the way you wanted, you can try it again. Now that you've learned some stuff, you can try it again, and you'll go further with it. But really just to give yourself permission to try.
I love that. I was
Mhm.
wondering if I could pull an oracle card just to close off our session here.
Sure, that'd be cool.
Yay. It's from this deck that I love called A Journey of Love.
Okay.
It's by Alana Fairchild, Rasuli, and Richard Cohn. It's always on point. So I'm curious to know what themes are going to get pulled out.
Okay.
Yay. Okay. Oh, things are already falling out. Okay. Okay, that was easy. Perfect. Okay, so we got soft, and I can read the corresponding message as well. Okay. A sanctuary bathed in soft light, your heart is receptive, inviting, and gentle. It brings strength to the weary, comfort to the lonely, and healing to the wounded. It is a magnet for all that is needed for you, your beloveds, your world. Don't imagine you must always be the fighter, going against the part of your nature that longs for harmony and peace. This is your time to be soft, to surrender, to let the subtle waves of the heart invite love in, and to receive. In doing so, you will give so much. This oracle brings you a message of peace. Surrender now, be soft, even just for this moment of quiet reflection. You have perhaps been working too hard at growing and living. Take some moments to replenish and allow the divine to help you. Be soft so you are receptive to the divine. It is when we let go that we truly perceive the obstacles that lie between us and oneness. Let go and perceive that the divine is already awakening in your heart. I'm feeling the connection to action,
Yeah.
surrendering, quiet reflection, going in to get intuition.
Yeah.
How does it
Yeah.
resonate to you?
That was perfect for what we talked about.
That deck has a way of doing this. And by the way, it's on page 111. So 111. I
Yeah.
think that's pretty cool also.
It is. Angel numbers.
Angel numbers for the win.
Yeah.
This has been such a wonderful conversation, and I want to offer you sincere gratitude for being my first Collabradabra.
Yeah.
We did it.
Yeah.
If you, to the listeners, are interested in hearing more from WT, I will make sure to have all of his information in the show notes. So you can go ahead and click into the description to get access to his free resources, his Instagram, YouTube, etc. It will all be there. WT, would you like to do a salutation just to end us off?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for doing this. Thanks for what you're doing. I think it's really awesome, and your show is really awesome. And for everybody, just wishing them joy and abundance and fulfillment.
And until next time.
Yeah, you heard.